Hi, welcome to It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree. You can find more about It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach by logging on to our website at igbattmho.org or igbatt.com. If you notice, we got a kind of a new setup, so we're always trying something new. But today, what we wanted to talk about was suicide. Suicide is the intentional taking of one's own life, right? So we talk about suicide. For those of you who do not know, September is Suicide Awareness Month. You know, over the last from the last 11 months, we've had several people in the mainstream news, so to speak, or the mainstream, that people have known who have taken their life. I think many of us have known at least one person who has died by suicide. I always say suicide is one option, but it's not the only option. We have a T-shirt that says "Make hope an option." Hope is always an option because you never know what can happen, how things can change. I always remind myself and remind people that yeah, it may be down, things may not look really great right now, but you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. When we talk about suicide, when we start having thoughts of suicide, that's usually connected to a depression. Not all the time, but in many of the cases, that is it. I wanted to share this with you. Is suicide in America? Frequently asked questions. And you can get this by the National Institute of Mental Health. You can actually log on to their website. And I just wanted to read something and share with you and just kind of go over it together with you. Suicide is when people direct violence at themselves with the intent to end their lives and they die because of their actions, right? Suicide is when a person is a direct violence against themselves with the intent to end their lives. When we talk about who's at risk for suicide, suicide doesn't discriminate, all sizes, races, sexual orientations, male, female, Americans, everybody. Okay, suicide does not discriminate. All right, I'm going to go over some main risk factors as outlined here, but these are just risk factors. So just because a person you or someone you might know may have a few risk factors, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to commit suicide. Okay, the main risk factors for suicide are a prior suicide attempt, depression, and other mental health disorders. And that's a big thing. Depression, we see it a lot. As I said, it's not always the factor here, kind of catch my light a little better. It's not always the factor. You can't say just because a person is depressed that they're going to commit suicide. But in many of the cases of suicide, death by suicide, depression is a factor. What happens with depression, when we start feeling depressed, we're talking about a disease, a disorder that impacts our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So depression impacts all aspects of our lives. And when we're depressed, we tend to dwell on thoughts that are not necessarily helpful because it's just part of the depression. We start feeling like things will never change, that I'll always be this way, that nobody loves me. We start talking in absolutes as if we know everybody or we've seen everybody. But this is what depression causes us to think. We start thinking really negative thoughts. We start, life looks down. We don't see the a future. We don't want to get out of bed. We don't want to talk to people. We isolate, all types of things when we talk about depression. So what happens is when we start thinking that way, when we start allowing the depressed brain to overcome and to overrule our thoughts, then we start thinking as if there's no hope, thinking and feeling as there's no hope. Because when we're down and depressed, all we can see is like tunnel vision. All you can see is the fact that things have not worked out for you, and that they probably will not work out in the past. And we start thinking things like, well, what's the use? Why bother? I may as well, just forget all about it. There's just no use. But that's the depressed brain talking. And when we allow the depressed brain to rule us for so long, we start thinking thoughts like, I'm better off not being here. I'm a burden to other people, so I may as well move on. Start having these all types of thoughts. Okay. So when we talk about who is at risk for suicide, the main risk factors for suicide are a prior suicide attempt, depression and other mental health disorders. which is really the big one, substance abuse disorders, family history of a mental health or substance abuse disorder, family history of suicide, family violence, including physical or sexual abuse, having guns or other firearms in the home. Because when you have the access, when you have the thought and then you have the access, it's easy to kind of go to it. It's quicker. Um, Same thing with pills and stuff like that. Being in prison or jail, being exposed to other suicidal behavior, a medical illness, being between the ages of 15 and 24 or over 60. Okay. And even as I said before, and I'm going to read it, even among people who have risk factors for suicide, most do not attempt suicide. It remains difficult to predict who will act on suicidal thoughts. So, what I read here out of the pamphlet is that who's at risk for suicide. We do know there are certain people who are at risk more than others because of certain things that are going on in their lives. But even with those individuals, just because a person knows someone who dies by suicide, or just because we have depression doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to attempt suicide ourselves. Okay. Then we go on. It talks about are there certain groups of people at a higher risk than others. We do know that men are more likely to die by suicide. While women, it's true, attempt more, but men are more likely to make an attempt. We also know that American Indian and Alaska Native youth and middle-aged persons have the highest risk of suicide. Again, this is something you can read. I would encourage you to go on their website, National Institute of Mental Health. It's called Suicide in America, Frequently Asked Questions. Why do some people become suicidal while others with similar risk factors do not? Most people who have the risk factors for suicide will not kill themselves, just like I said. However, the risk for suicidal behavior is complex. Research suggests that people who attempt suicide may react to events, think, and make decisions differently than those who do not attempt suicide. Okay, so again, risk factors are important to keep in mind, but they're not, the end all be all, so to speak. Someone who has warning signs of suicide may be in more danger. So what are we talking about warning signs? And again, I'm going to just go over some behaviors. Talking about wanting to die or wanting to kill themselves. So when someone says, hey, I'm going to kill myself, we want to take that seriously. A lot of times you may feel like someone is saying that to get attention, and that may be, right? But they're getting attention in the wrong way because you want to think about it. If a person does that to get attention, there's usually something that's going on with them. So we want to make sure that we take that threat seriously. Talking about feeling empty, hopeless, or having no reason to live, planning or looking for a way to kill themselves, talking about great guilt or shame. I've talked to a lot of people, who talk about, in their mind, they're trying to do things so other people could kill them. So they want to, a death by the metro bus. Hey, some people have told me, hey, I'll just walk out in front of the metro bus and hopefully the metro bus will do it. Or I'll just walk out in front of another car. So people, they think about ways how to do it. Talking about feeling trapped or feeling that there are no solutions, feeling unbearable pain, talking about being a burden to others, acting anxious or agitated, changing eating or sleeping habits, taking risks that could lead to death, such as reckless driving, giving away important possessions, putting affairs in order, making a will. So again, when we look at some of these warning signs, when you look at the warning signs and you couple them with the risk, people who are at risk for suicide, it's important for us to ask questions. There's a great myth out there. People are afraid to ask the question, "Hey, Arnetta, are you thinking about killing yourself?" And you want to ask the question. You want to say what you're noticing. Hey, Arnetta, I'm noticing, that you don't seem to be yourself. I'm noticing that you are, giving away possessions. I'm noticing that, you're not hanging around the group like you used to. What's going on? So you want to ask questions. You want to ask the person directly, are you thinking about killing yourself? You want to ask the person, you want to say to them, this is what I'm noticing. I'm noticing that over the last, several weeks, or you don't have to go that far. You could just say, I'm noticing, fill in the blank, whatever the behavior is, are you okay? You want to ask that question. When you ask the question, you don't want to ask it like you're afraid to get the answer. You don't want to ask the question, you're not trying to kill yourself, are you? You want to just ask it. because when we think about the things that many of us have gone through and the things that many of us are going through, you would be surprised, or some of you will be surprised, the things that people have to deal with inside of their homes. You may see a person on the outside and they may look like they have it all together, but you don't know how many times that person thought about ending it all. You don't know how hard it was for that individual just to get up out of bed. You don't know that that person, that all they're looking forward to all is to get up out of bed, to go to work so they can come back home and lay in bed the entire weekend. You don't know how hard it is. When we talk about depression and dealing with untreated mental illnesses, again, something impacts the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It can be difficult for a lot of people. When we talk about depression hurts, there's a pain that goes along with it, because it's not just you don't feel like it. It's like you just don't have the energy. You just don't know. You don't feel like it. You don't see a reason to feel like it. You feel like everything is hopeless, and it all can kind of come to a head on you. So if you've never dealt with depression, or you never dealt with any untreated mental illness, it's important to remember that there are people out there who are. And and I just want to say to those of you who are out there, if you're dealing with just being really depressed, feeling really sad, feeling really heavy, feeling really empty, you have to know that things can get better. You may say, well, I've been trying, but I always tell people, if you have been things have been going a certain way for, let's say, 10 years, right? Things have not been right for you, and you just figure like, okay, 10 years, it's over. Give yourself another 10 years to make it to see things change, right? It takes some work, it takes some effort, but there are some things that we need to kind of keep that in mind. We need to know that things can change. Yeah, things have been bad in your life. Yeah, you've been a victim of abuse. Yeah, you've lost your job. You don't have any money. There's no one around to take care of you or to care for you. Many people are worried about the future. There are a lot of things that's going on with people right now. That's going on with us as human beings. But what I'm here to let you know, that suicide, that is just one option. Hope is another option, right? Hope. But when you hope, it's not just hoping things going to get better. You want to begin to take a look at those things that are causing you sadness, that are causing you depression, that are causing you to feel this way. And you want to begin to take pen and paper, write things out. Okay, what can I do about these things? Are there things that I can change? There are some things, we look at, I can't, some things I can change, some people I can't do anything about. Those things that we truly can't change, those are the things that we will have to begin to learn to accept. How can I accept living with this illness? Yes, I have this illness. There is no cure for it. How can I learn to live with this illness? Because having an illness doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It doesn't have to be. They're having the situation that I'm in right now. This negative situation does not have to be the end of the world. You have to tell yourself, this doesn't have to be the end for me. Yes, things look bad right now. Yes, I don't know how I'm going to make it right now, but there is a way out, right? I just have to find that way out. I just have to find that door. Some of you may say, well, I've been trying for 10 years. Well, I'm telling you to keep trying, because you haven't turned the right door. There is a right door for you that will open. There is a right person out there for you. There is a right opportunity out there for you. The thing is, that as we continue to push forward, as we continue to keep going, know that hope is always an option. Okay. So again, just something here. Do people threaten suicide to get attention? And I talked about that, but I'll read it. Suicidal thoughts or actions are a sign of extreme distress and an alert that someone needs help. Any warning sign or symptom of suicide should not be ignored. All talk of suicide should be taken seriously and requires action. It talks about the next myth that this pamphlet talks about. If you ask someone about suicide, does it put the idea into your head? And I basically just answered that question. Okay. What should I do if I'm in a crisis or someone I know is considering suicide? If you or someone you know has a warning signs or symptoms of suicide, particularly if there's no change in behavior, you want to get help as soon as possible. Often family and friends, because you're close to the individual, you may be the first to notice it, or even you as an individual. You may not notice at first when things are starting to creep up, right? You may not notice in the negative thoughts, the negative behaviors, the cynicism. You may not notice it. You may just, think that you're in a bad mood, or people may think that you're in a bad mood. But you want to pay attention to those types of things, and if possible, you want to reach out. 988 is the new suicide hotline number. You can call 988 at any time. If it's an emergency, you can always call 911. Okay. So again, when we talk about suicide, as I said, it's just an option, just one option. The other options besides suicide is life. So I want to spend these last few minutes talking about moving from death to life. Moving from death to life. And again, this pamphlet is Suicide in America, Frequently Asked Questions, and it's from the Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute of Health. You can go on their website. You can also go onto our website for the link, and our website is igbattmho.org. Again, igbattmho.org. Okay? So again, I want to close this out by talking about moving from death to life. What was death? Death is any thought, feeling, or behavior that is anti to life. Any thought, feeling, or behavior that is anti to living, that is anti to you moving forward, is a death thought. Okay. Any death thought that comes to steal, kill, and destroy your destiny. Any thought that comes to make you think that you're not going to be able to make it, that people don't love you, that everybody out there. That may be true that some people don't, right? It may be true that there are certain situations that didn't work out, certain circumstances didn't work out. It may be true that everybody in your family may not like you, but it's not true that everybody in the world that you met don't like you. That's not true. You just haven't found the right person. So when we're talking about moving from death to life, death is as I'm describing it here, is any thought, feeling, or behavior that is anti to life. Life is anti to life. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Any thought, any feeling, any behavior that make you think that you're a nobody, that you can't make it, that people don't care and you may as well give up, that what's the use? There's no hope. That is a thought of death. When God made you, he made you special. Okay, I don't care whether you're an atheist listening to me, agnostic, I don't care what you are. You have a life. You were here. You were created for a reason. You were created for a purpose. Those thoughts of death, those thoughts are counting on you believing the thought and giving into it and ending your life so that you will never know the purpose that God has for your life. You are here on earth to live, not to die. Death, any thought, feeling, or behavior that is anti to life. Your disease, sickness, or problem is not the problem. How we respond to the disease, sickness, or problem is the problem. Let me say that again. The disease is not the problem. Your sickness is not the problem, or your problem is not the problem. Because there are many people out there who have a problem just like you have. They have a sickness just like you have. But when you look at them, they are moving forward. So the disease, the sickness is not the problem. Our negative brain, our negative thoughts will put us in a position where we think that we can't do it because of, nobody likes me because I'm fat. Nobody likes me because I'm skinny. Nobody likes me because I'm too short, or whatever the case is, or, I stutter, or whatever the case is that we come up with, even the negative things that we say to ourselves. As I always say, if we were able to carry a tape recorder around with us and to record our thoughts, what would be on those thoughts? Would there be thoughts like, hey, you can make it. Okay, you made a mistake, but hey, it's not the end of the world. Keep going. Or would there be thoughts like, oh, you are so stupid. Why did you do that? Why did you make that mistake? How many times are you going to ask that same question? What is wrong with you, right? For many of us, when we listen to our tape recorder, nothing but negative thoughts. If we're thinking negative thoughts, that's why we're feeling the way we feel, and that's the way we're behaving. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors go together. So, but always remember, our disease, our sickness, our problem is not the problem. Okay, that's not the problem. The fact that you have depression, the fact that you may be diagnosed with schizophrenia, the fact that you hear voices, the fact that you a single parent, The fact that you're married or whatever the thing is that you think is the problem is not the problem. It's how we view it, it's how we see it. And what happens is those negative thoughts, those depressive thoughts get in the way. So it's like those negative thoughts put up a blinder where all we can see are the negative things. We can't see, if we were able to push that out of the way, we would be able to see options. We would be able to see opportunities. We would be able to see other people out there who have gone through things worse than we have. You know, the good thing about it is that when you can look at other people who have gone through things worse than you have or have gone through things similar, then that lets you know there's hope. That lets you know that there's a way out. That lets you know that there is a light. That lets you know that those negative thoughts that you've been telling yourselves, those negative thoughts that have been coming up, that let you know that there's no hope is a lie. Because if this person can make it out, and they're worse than I am, or they're dealing with certain things, situations similar to me, and they're making it out, then there has to be a way out. But our depressive thoughts, those negative thoughts, all they want us to see is a negative thought. Because when I'm just looking at or meditating on my negative thoughts, I can't make it. Things are never working out for me. I tried 100 times. If you tried 100 times, sometimes you may have to try 101 times. So again, we have to know that is how we respond to the problem, right? We have to take a look at the things that we're going through, and you want to put them in categories. Are there things that I can change? Okay. Are there things that I can't change? Because if we're dealing with things that I can't change, then we have to get into a place of acceptance. And acceptance is not the same thing as giving up and say, oh, well. No, acceptance is saying, okay, this is my life. Okay. I'm diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay. I'm going to learn how to manage this. I'm going to learn how to manage my schizophrenia. I'm going to learn how to manage my symptoms of depression. I'm going to learn how to manage my symptoms of bipolar or my symptoms of schizophrenia. I'm sorry. I'm going to learn how to manage these things, and I'm going to live my life. Because having the diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, being a single parent, whatever your problem is, doesn't define me. That is not the problem. The problem is how I view the problem. Those things, being a person living with schizophrenia, being a person diagnosed with depression, being a person who is a single parent, being a person who has no children, being a person who's single, or whatever the problem is, being someone who's poor or rich, whatever your thing is, right? That thing is that's just something to let you know, okay, you have to live with. Right? So once you realize this is something I have to live with, then you're going to learn how to live with it. How can I move past this? Because having these things in my life, these negative things in my life, doesn't mean it has to stop me. I may have to move a little slower. I may have to go in a different direction, but it does not have to stop me. So, as I said, acceptance is not the same thing as giving up. So, there are some things we have to look at I can change, some things I can't change. Those things that I can't change in my life, I'm going to accept. I'm going to learn to accept. But it's not the same as giving up. It's not the same as saying, oh, well, it's not learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is something totally different. Learned helplessness is something that is a behavior, it's a thought that comes to kill, steal, and destroy the life that we can actually have. Acceptance is saying, okay, this is the way things are right now. If it changes, it changes. But I'm going to learn to live. I'm going to use that negative thing and use it as a platform to live my life. I've seen people who have no legs. I've seen people in wheelchairs, and they're out there running marathons in the way that they can. You have the wheelchair marathon. So there are different things. There's one gentleman, I cannot remember his name. He has no arms, no legs. I believe he was born this way. He's public speaking, right? He's married, and I believe he has children. So again, when you look at somebody like him, you can say, wow, he could have said, wow, I don't have any legs. I don't have any arms. What can I do? There's nothing left for me in the world. Now I'm useless. But he didn't do that. He used those things and said, okay, I'm born with no legs. I don't have born with no arms. This is my life, but I'm not, this is where I am, but I'm not going to let that stop me. Okay. So again, and then once you look at those things that you have that you can't change, that you have to accept, then you want to go back and look at those things, other areas. Okay, what can I do? Is this something that I need to worry about now? Something I need to worry about tomorrow? Because there's so many people who are listening to me. You are plagued by worry. Thoughts of anxiety, of thoughts of what's going to happen tomorrow. You can't rest, you can't sleep because you're worried about things. Again, Take a look at those things that you're worried about, begin to write things down, and ask yourself, come up with a plan. When you find yourself can't sleep, get up out of bed, look at those things that you're worried about, and say, hey, what can I do about this? What is the plan? What is the strategy? And you may find that there's some things you can't, there's no strategy for, but that's okay. But when you begin to kind of come up with a plan or begin to get into a planning mode, it takes away the power of some of that worry. It takes away the power of some of that anxiety. Because here's the thing: worry, anxiety, depression, all of these things, death by thoughts of suicide or thoughts that get you to the point where you think that it's all over, all of these things are come to kill, steal, and destroy your potential. Everyone listening to me, you were born with potential. God created with you with potential to do something great. But what happens is those negative things that come up in our life, whether it's through a family member, somebody did something to us, whether it's our experiences in life, whether it's through trauma or whatever it is, those things, we've had things to come up in our life that try to stop us. But see, those things will come up in our life: the trauma, the abuse, people saying you're not going to make it, you're nobody, all these things that bring about that feeling of depression, that sadness, that worry, that anxiety. It keeps us stuck. It keeps us looking at our problem. It keeps us looking at our worry, the things we're worried about. It keeps us anxious. It keeps us from moving forward. But when we begin to realize and say, no, I'm going to live, we can push those things aside and begin to say, yeah, it may be challenging. It may be difficult, but one step at a time, I'm going to move forward. And my time's almost running out. Running out. Okay. So deaf or struggling words, operating below potential, inactivity. I don't know if you can see this. I'm doing something, as I said, when we doing something new with our camera. Okay. Okay. Okay, I had to add 15 more minutes to my broadcast here. So you see this, what I have here, death to life, and I'm going to read it. Death is on one side, right? Struggling words, operating below potential, inactivity, loss, no self-confidence, feeling as if you can't do anything right. Victim, always be danger, ongoing symptoms, despair, torment, doubt, feel like giving up, thoughts of suicide, guilt, shame, embarrassment, misinformation, refusing to use the tools provided, pride. All of these things lead to death. Okay, all of these things lead to you not being able to fulfill your potential. Okay, but we want to go from death to life. Okay, what is the two here? The two here is our faith. This is death, right? All of these negative thoughts that I mentioned. But how do we get from death to life? How do we get from death to life? What gets us to life? Couple of things here, several things here. Number one, our faith. For those of us who listen to It's Getting Better all the time, our faith in Jesus Christ. Our faith, balanced thinking. A lot of people talk about positive thinking. Positive thinking is okay, but I think what's more important is to have a balanced thinking. Balanced thinking is when we take into account both the good and the bad. Is when we take into account the fact that things may, we're realistic. Realistic thinking, not just thinking, oh well, everything will be okay. And you're saying that, but knowing that you need to get a job, right? Everything will be okay. I'm not worried. But then you're spending your money that you don't have. So balanced thinking is realistic thinking. It's an honest thing. It's really looking at, okay, it is not making things out to be the end of the world. Balanced, for example, if I made a mistake, right? Something happened, I submitted, for me, a few weeks ago, I submitted the wrong paperwork. I was like, oh, shoot, I submitted the wrong paperwork, right? It wasn't the end of the world, right? It was a delay. It caused me to have a delay, but it wasn't the end of the world. So I had to say to myself, you know what? There's nothing I can do about it. I already submitted the paperwork. They're going to send it back to me. When they do, I have to do it all over again. It's not, I don't want to have to do it over again, but it's not the end of the world. I will survive. I will move forward. Again, we have to have a balanced thinking. But when we're operating under these thoughts of death, when something happened, the first thing we say, oh, that's so stupid. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Oh, shoot. What? Oh, my God, I'm such an idiot. Okay. We say these negative things to ourselves. We say these things that reinforce death, that reinforce an ability to fulfill our potential. Because when we're walking in death thoughts or depressed thoughts, death, as I said, my definition of death are any thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that is not conducive to living. So when we're walking in these thoughts of death, then we're not going to be able to fulfill our potential. Death thoughts reaffirm low self-esteem. Death thoughts reaffirm thoughts such as you're not going to make it. Death thoughts make us act and behave as we can't. Someone offer us to do something. I'm not going to do it. There's this thing now, and please hear what I'm saying. Let me slow down, okay? There's this thing. There are a lot of people are saying, well, I am. Oh God, they put themselves in categories because I'm quiet. I don't talk a lot. Oh God, now it escapes me. But it's the thing that people keep saying, well, I'm introverted or I'm extroverted. Okay, I think we all have different personalities, right? But here's the thing: there's a difference between when your person is introverted because of low self-esteem. You're introverted because of things that have happened to you in the past. You're not really introverted. You're introverted because of your fear. You're introverted. Again, listen to what I'm saying. For some people, introvert when you say is nothing but an excuse to hide behind your fear. Introvert is nothing but an excuse to hide, right? Okay? To hide who you are. Same thing with being extrovert. Some people are extrovert, they're outgoing, they're loud, they're life of the party, they're telling jokes, but telling jokes, being the life of the party, for some people, is nothing more than a shield to hide the pain, to hide the trauma. The thing is, we want to be who we are authentically. You want to be who God has called you to be, and not allow labels. I'm introverted, I'm extroverted, or anything that has happened to keep us from being who we are. Right? You don't want to be an introvert or extrovert. You want to be who God has called you to be. And if who God has called you to, if you're introvert or extrovert or whatever label you want to give to yourself is causing you to draw back, to limit yourself so that you are unable to be who God has called you to be, then that label, that introvert, that extrovert label is nothing more than a crutch, and it's nothing more than a shield. It's nothing more than a design to keep you from being who you want to be, who you need to be. So again, from death to life. So when we're talking about two, what gets us to life? Take us out of that death, those death thoughts. Okay? Trust, acceptance, sometimes medications for some people, medical doctors, fasting, our faith, our religion, our spirituality, okay, friends, being around other people, balanced thoughts, prayer, and a religion that leads to faith. Because see, here's the thing. One of the people always talk about, I trust God, for those of you who do. But if you're trusting God and not doing anything, then you're really not trusting God. Trusting God is not lazy. It's not a lazy. When you say you trust God, you can't be lazy, okay? Because trusting God is going to require you to do some work. It's going to require you to make some effort. One of the things that, unfortunately, with Christianity, for example, in particular, has got a bad rap because a lot of people who are Christians, they don't follow through on you do some of the scriptures, but you don't do them all, right? So you don't do anything, and then when people look at you and you're not succeeding, we're not moving forward, then people are like, why do I want that? Well, I'm gonna let people know that that person is not, they're living beyond their Christian belief, their Christian walk, because the God of the Bible is a God of strength, is a God of power, is a God of life, right? And when you have faith, works should be following that faith, right? Faith and works go together. Faith without works is dead. This is like me saying, oh well, I'm just gonna believe I'm gonna lose 50 pounds. Oh, I'm praying, oh, I'm gonna believe I'm gonna lose 50 pounds. I have actually been saying I was gonna lose 50 pounds. It's been a year now. You know why? Because I'm not working out like I should. I had an injury, so I give myself an excuse. But even before then, not really that much. But we make excuses, right? We say, I want to lose weight, but I'm not doing anything to lose weight. I say I want to gain weight. I'm not doing anything to gain weight. I say I'm going to stop smoking or whatever it is. And we're really not doing anything to say, other than saying I want to do it. Right? So that's one of the things. But we're looking at death to life. The things that get us to life, things that get us to life is going to be positive things. Balanced thinking, right? Not challenging our negative thoughts. Doing something about those things that cause us to be worried and to be stressed. And what do I mean by doing something about it? Pulling out a pen or paper and begin to evaluate it. Worry is one of those things that will take you in circles, right? You start worrying or being anxious about, what if I lose my job? And then if I lose my job, then I'll lose my car. Then I'll lose my car, I'll be out on the street. And then I'll have to go into a shelter. My God, if I go into a shelter, suppose I get beat up. And then if I get beat up in the shelter and they send me to a hospital, I don't have any insurance. And then when I'm in the hospital, I don't have any insurance, then I'll have extra bills. And then if I have these extra bills, then what am I going to do? And we just keep going in circle and circle and circle about things that may not ever even happen. Right? So we have to stop that cycle of worry. We have to stop that cycle by pulling out a pen and paper and begin to write down these things that's causing us to be worried, to be stressed out, and begin to come up with a plan from death to life. What is life? Life is we go from struggling, ing, to struggled with an ed. That's in the past. It's at or above our potential. Life is activity. Life is a confidence, right? It's a confidence in knowing that whatever happens, it's going to be okay because I will have the ability, whenever I need it, I'm going to have the ability to move forward. Life is overcoming. Life is thriving, is learning to thrive in the midst of the illness or problem. If you want to talk about it from a different perspective, you can equate life with recovery. Life with recovery means moving forward, right? It means recovery. It doesn't mean that all things are well. It doesn't mean that I'm healed. It doesn't mean that I don't have the illness or sickness or problem anymore. It just means that I've learned to live with it. I've learned not to let it get me down. I've learned to realize that this is just part of my life, right? Having an illness is just part of who I am. Okay? Having this problem is just part of who I am. It's not all of who I am. I'm not going to let the fact that I'm a single parent or that I don't have any children or that I don't have a job or let these things, define who I am. I'm going to realize these are part of who I am and I'm going to begin to move forward. So again, when we talk about moving from death to life, moving from death, those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that bring us down, those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that make us think that we're not going to succeed, those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that make us think that we're nobody, that things will never work out. Okay, any thought, feeling, or behavior that we have that takes us away from the potential that we can be is a thought of death, and it's something that we need to push past because life is out there, right? Recovery is out there. We can move forward. Again, it may not look the same way as someone else's, but we can move forward. So again, this has been It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree, providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith. You can find out more about us by logging on to our website at igbattmho.org. And if you are located in the Prince George's County, Maryland area, we are going to be doing some classes out in the community. So please log on to our website to get more information. The classes and everything are free. Again, this has been It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach, providing information and support